I'm Elizabeth at A Literary Princess. If you are new here, welcome. I am a 6-year PhD candidate in English literature with a focus on Victorian women novelists. And as you might expect, I love to read. Today I have the BookTuber Bio Tag for you. This tag was created by Jessica from Jessica's Library Card, and it's been going around for the past month or so, and I figured it was time for me to do it, even though I was not tagged. But it's a really good way to just kind of provide an introduction to yourself for people who are new to the channel. So, there are 10 questions. Let's jump in. Question number 1, who are you? Share a little bit about yourself as much as you feel comfortable. So, like I said, I'm Elizabeth, 31 years old. I am from New England, born and raised in Massachusetts, currently living in New Hampshire. I lived for 1 year in the UK while I was doing my master's degree at Lancaster University. And now I am doing a PhD in English literature. I am in my 6th and final year. Currently writing my dissertation. I will be finishing in September. I had hoped to finish it in May, but that's not happening. So I am specifically focusing on Victorian women novelists who have been accused of writing too much and how that affects the literary canon in the 21st century. I am married to my wonderful husband, Stephen, who I mention all the time because he thinks I should buy less books, and he's wrong. We've been married for, it'll be 3 years in June, which is like, wow. We have 2 cats together who love to make appearances occasionally, and we're probably going to be getting one from Butters during this video because he is sitting right behind the camera and he will inevitably try to knock it over. So I've got Butters the tuxedo cat and Pippin the orange cat, and even though they are naughty little beans, they are my joy in life. I'm a big animal lover in general. I also have a dog, Willow. She lives with my parents because she's very attached to my mother, but technically she is my dog. We got her for when I finished my master's degree. I also grew up with Siberian Huskies. My parents were dog sledders. So yeah, I was surrounded by Huskies as a child. I hate winter. So you can guess how that went, dog sledding, but I love the dogs. I also used to work at a dog daycare and boarding kennel for several years. Theoretically, I write fiction. I've not actually written anything in a really long time, but I'm hoping to get back into it once the PhD is over and done with. It's because the PhD has kind of been making me hate writing. Stephen was like, you would have time to write a novel right now. I'm like, boy, no. No. I also do write a little bit of poetry occasionally, and I do still do that despite hating writing at the moment. But I think my love of writing will come back to me once the trauma of the dissertation is done. So, that's me in a nutshell. I don't really do much other than that. I like to read books and then make videos talking about the books that I read. Question number 2, how long have you been on BookTube? I started my channel in December of 2021, so I just had my 3-year anniversary. Question number 3, what kinds of books do you like to read? Has BookTube had an effect on what you read? So, if you can't tell from behind me, I really like classics. Particularly Victorian classics. Shocking. But I also read other 19th century classics. I'm doing an 18th century novel project right now. I read Shakespeare. I read some 20th century stuff like Virginia Woolf. Although I'm not as well versed in that period as I should be either, and we'll probably have to do a modernist literature project one of these days. But in addition to classics, I also love fantasy, gothic and horror. I'll go for the occasional mystery thriller or Oh, I do love historical fiction, and also the occasional literary fiction and some YA, mostly not YA anymore because I'm just too old for it, but my favorite series is a YA series. So yeah, I'll really read anything. The only genres I'm not huge on are romance and sci-fi, and even then I will read those sometimes. I'm currently reading a sci-fi book. Has BookTube had an effect on what I read? I don't think it has affected the genres I read. I pretty much still read what I've always liked to read, but I've gotten so many fantastic recommendations through BookTube, especially for classics, like for lesser known ones. It affects when I read things because we have all these events. We have Feb Regency and Jane Austen July and Booktober and Shakespeare. So because of those, I read certain things in certain months. So I read Regency literature in February and in July. I read Victorian literature year-round, but I read a lot of it in October. I read Shakespeare in September. I read nonfiction in November. It's all things that I would read anyway, but it's just like when I'm reading it is because of BookTube. Question number 4, what do you enjoy about making BookTube videos? I love coming up with the ideas for what I'm gonna film, like, what's my next video gonna be? And then getting all the books off the shelves, that's really fun for me. Like, okay, I'm gonna talk about this book for this prompt if I'm doing a tag, or, oh, I'm gonna talk about this book and this book for a underrated Victorian recommendations. Love doing that. I also love the community. I think everybody says that, but the BookTube community is really just such a wonderful, welcoming, kind community. And I love interacting with all of you in the comments. You're just all great. Question number 5, what do you not enjoy about making BookTube videos? So Hannah from Hannah's book said one that I'm like, yes, absolutely. And that was putting the books away when you're done. And like, yeah, I love getting them off the shelf, putting them back. Nah, hate that. Absolutely hate that. Especially if I'm doing one where there's a lot of books. So a few years ago for Booktober, I did a What Victorian Literature Have I Read? And I mean, my shelves were ransacked because most of what you see behind you is Victorian. And it was just stacks of books everywhere. And when I was done filming, I was like, that was fantastic. And then I looked around and was like, I have to put all these back. Oh my God, why? The other thing that I'm not as big on is editing. I'm getting a lot better at it. I don't really do a huge amount of editing, just like, you know, cutting out long pauses or if I screw up saying something. And I do edit in pictures of books that I don't physically have, but I find it very tedious. And the program that I use, VSDC, which is free, and that's why I use it, because I like free. You have to export the video once you're done editing it so that it's in the proper format to upload, and it takes a really long time. It is like twice the length of how long the video is. So if I film a 30-minute video, it takes at least an hour to export it. And like, it's tedious, and the computer has to be plugged in because my computer is kind of crappy and it will die. So it's tedious, but it's fine. I love everything else about BookTube and making videos, so it's worth it. Question number 6, what video on your channel are you the most proud of? So I'm actually gonna have to go with a series of 4 videos, and that would be my What I'm Teaching in British Literature 3 series. So I got the opportunity 2 years ago now, geez, to teach British Literature 3, Romantics through Postmodernists, to a group of undergrad students. I was very excited. It was my first time teaching anything other than first year writing. So I was thrilled. I got to design the class and like figure out how I wanted to do it and what texts I wanted us to look at. And so I did a series of videos like what I'm what I'm teaching for each of the units: Romantics, Victorians, Modernists, Postmodernists. And I'm really happy with those videos because I get to look back and like remember this thing that I'm really, really proud of. Like, I'm so proud of myself for having taught that and designed the course. And my students really liked it. Like, several of them told me it's been their favorite course. So when I look back at the videos and I'm talking about my students' reactions to reading Jane Eyre for the first time, or how they all love to hate on Lord Byron with me, it just makes me really happy and it makes me feel really proud. Question number 8, name 3 books that you have reviewed on your channel that you feel represent who you are as a reader. So I don't really do a lot of reviews. Like, lots of people do individual reviews all the time. Some people's channels are all individual reviews. I don't do that much. I do series, like features, where I will talk about a book, like my 18th century novel series that I'm doing right now. I review each of those. I did that for George Eliot's fiction. I do that for Fairy Tale Friday, I call it, which I haven't done in ages, where I look at a fairy tale retelling. And I also have a series called Rereading as an Adult, where I reread something that I have not read since I was under the age of 18. So I went through those and I picked 3 books from those that I feel really represent me as a reader. First up, we have one from Fairy Tale Friday, and this is Juniper and Thorn by Ava Reid. So this represents a lot of things about me as a reader. First of all, fairy tales and retellings. This is a retelling of The Juniper Tree by the Brothers Grimm, which is a absolutely brutal fairy tale, even by Brothers Grimm standards. And Ava Reid somehow made it even more disturbing. So this is here for fairy tales and fantasy, obviously, but also for gothic and horror, because it is very much a gothic book with some horrifying stuff going on in it. So that, I mean, this book is just like everything that I'd like in one little book. And it's great. It's a great book. I love it. I highly recommend you read it. It's disturbing. There's disturbing elements. Look at the trigger warnings, just in case. And the next 2 are classics, because that really does make up the majority of my reading. First up, we have Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen. Of course. I reviewed this for my Rereading as an Adult series. I hadn't read it since I was 17. So again, 19th century classic by a woman writer, also dealing with the marriage plot. Marriage in especially 19th century classic novels, but also in 18th century and 20th century, is a very interesting topic to me. It's not what I'm looking at in my current research, but I have done research on it before. So this represents that for me. And also, it's just, Jane Austen's one of my favorite authors. Persuasion is actually my favorite book by her, but I think, well, first of all, I haven't reviewed Persuasion, but I think Pride and Prejudice is a really good representation for me. And then finally, we have Daniel Deronda by George Eliot, which I did for my George Eliot project, reading all of her fiction in publication order. This was her last novel. So Daniel Deronda, again, represents my love of Victorian women novelists focusing on marriage issues, because the part that I really love about this novel is the story of Gwendolyn Harleth, who has some marriage issues. Even though I don't work directly with George Eliot, she comes up in my research constantly because she was like the woman writer of the period. So everyone's getting compared to her, everybody's commenting on her. So even though I'm not directly looking at her novels in my research, she's there constantly. So I think that means she's a really good representation of my reading. Question number 9, name 3 booktubers whose content inspires you. So first of all, I of course have to mention Katie from Books and Things, who is also a huge lover of Victorian literature. I believe the founder of BookTuber, and just so knowledgeable about the period and talks so intelligently about Victorian literature. Her videos are amazing. She is also a writer. She has published 2 books, both set in the Victorian period, and they were amazing. They were both on my lists of best books for the years they came out. So 2024 had The Trouble with Mrs. Montgomery Hearst, and 2023 had The Secrets of Hartwood Hall. So I find that really inspiring that she is a writer. And I'm like, hey, people are writers. Maybe I can get back to writing someday when this PhD is over. I also find her very inspiring because she has almost finished reading all of Anthony Trollope's novels. So Anthony Trollope is one of her favorite Victorian authors, and he wrote an insane amount of novels. I also have a Victorian writer who's my favorite, who wrote an insane amount of novels, Margaret Oliphant. And I would love to read all of her novels. But I'm always like, oh God, it's so many, I'd never be able to do it. But seeing Katie do it with Anthony Trollope, I'm like, maybe I can do it. Maybe I can read all of Oliphant's fiction. So I'm gonna try anyway. So Katie is an inspiration in that way as well. I also would like to mention Alana Estelle. She does mostly individual book reviews, and she's so good at them. Like, her book reviews are just so good. Even for books that I have no interest in, I watch her reviews because I love her reviewing style. Like I said, I don't do a lot of individual book reviews. I kind of would like to do more. And so seeing her book reviews inspires me to think about actually doing some book reviews, and also gives me ideas for how to do book reviews. And I have incorporated some of her structuring into my 18th century novel project videos. She's also just such a confident person and fully herself. And she's like, if you don't like me, you can leave. And that's so I love her. She's great. And she's also hysterical. Like, and she'll go on rants about stuff, and it's good stuff. Good stuff. Everyone should go watch Alana. And then finally, I would be remiss if I did not mention the booktuber who inspired me to create my channel. She no longer makes videos, unfortunately, but this would be Kate File. I know Kate in real life, or knew Kate in real life. I have not seen her in several years. She was doing her master's program when I first started my PhD, so we were in classes together. And she was like, yeah, I'm a booktuber. And I was like, really? Because I'd watched BookTube pretty frequently at that point. So I looked at her channel, I'm like, wow, this is something that real people do. Not that the rest of you aren't real people, but like a person that I know, like in the flesh, was doing this. I was like, I could do that. Because it was always something I'd kind of toyed around with, because I have a Tumblr dedicated to books, and I also have a book blog. Not that I've posted on it recently. And the next logical step always seemed like a BookTube channel, but I was like, I don't know. Being in front of a camera is weird. So meeting Kate and seeing her videos inspired me to actually make this channel. And I did steal some things from her, like my currently reading videos, totally stolen from her. And then over on my book blog, I used to do a 3 classics review where I'd like do quick little reviews of 3 classics, and totally stolen from her. But yeah, she's not making videos anymore, which is really sad, but all of her old videos are still up, and I highly recommend checking them out because she is great. Question number 10, share the love. It can be challenging to find your audience. Name 3 booktubers who you think need more hype. So first, I want to mention a very new channel, and this is Diary of a Provincial Lady, run by Catherine, and she's great. I feel like I'm saying that about everyone. She's great, but she is. She also reads a lot of classics. She loves Jane Austen, but she also reads a lot of 20th century classic writers who I've not read a lot of, but would like to read more of. So I find that very interesting because I get to hear about those from her. I recommend checking her out. All of her videos so far are fantastic, and I can't wait to see more from her. Next, I would like to mention Brindis, daughter of Gunnar. She also reads a lot of classics. I think she's reading Moby Dick right now, she said. And she just read Moll Flanders, and yeah, she reads a lot of classics. She is also doing her PhD and is finishing this year. She is writing her dissertation. So I very much feel this kinship with her because we're both doing this horrid thing. But we're gonna do it, and we're both gonna finish, and it's gonna be great. Yeah, somebody recommended her channel in like a video of booktube channels I've been enjoying or whatever. And I'm so glad they did because I really enjoy her channel and I highly recommend everyone check her out. And then finally, I want to mention someone who I've mentioned many times before, but I will keep mentioning her because she's amazing. And that is Steph Morgan. Steph reads a lot of fantasy and horror and gothic, and she's just got so many great recommendations. So many good books. She is also a writer, and she has some videos showing the process of revising her novel. So highly recommend you check her out. She also has a very cute cat who makes occasional appearances. Brindis has a cat too, and I'm pretty sure Catherine has a cat. So go check them out for both themselves and their videos and their cats. So that is the BookTuber Bio Tag. Thank you so much to Jessica for making this. I think it's been a great way for people in the community to kind of get to know each other and interact. And yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see more of my bookish content. It's been great chatting with you. I will see you soon. Bye.